This is a presentation of SBE 15, New York City.
I will introduce Joe D'Angelo from Xperi Corporation to talk to us about radio's place in the connected car. Joe.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. Joe. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Little commercial before I get started. Steve and I will be doing a panel next Thursday in New York, so you can come see a little more detail about what I'm going to be showing today. But I wanted to start by talking about some trends that are going on in the car, because there's been a lot of buzz, a lot of debate, really, in the industry trades, the radio trades specifically, about what's going on in the car. And I just wanted to give you our perspective of what we're seeing and really the services that we're bringing to market, so you have a perspective of the environment that radio will be and actually is competing in today. And those three trends, not surprisingly, I'm sure you've heard of all of them, are connectivity, new technology platforms, and content. They are converging in the dash to really revolutionize the driver experience. So this all started a while back with the integration of CarPlay. This is, I think, a 2011 implementation in a Ford vehicle. Not very sexy, but this was the beginning of bringing IP audio into the dash. It's gotten sleeker, it's gotten sexier, it's gotten easier to use, and it's gotten more integrated. The choice of audio has expanded. So that first screen was a Toyota, here is a Tesla, and this is a relatively new service, but this is a bespoke BMW music platform. So BMW has commissioned their own music service, very tightly integrated in the dash. You don't need to tether your phone. It's really there right at your fingertips. And that's just on the audio side. Video. Believe it or not, video is not only coming to the dash, it's in the dash right now. What's driving that is this convergence of the OEMs, the automakers, wanting to control the media experience, and the advanced driver automation systems that are coming into the car. We've seen level 2, level 3, level 4 autonomous vehicles being certified. And what happened just this past summer, I think, is worth noting. Mercedes was certified for fully autonomous operations on the Autobahn. So it is coming, this hands-free driving. You even see on TV, General Motors is running commercials with a guy driving his SUV or his pickup, clapping his hands, taking his hands off the wheel. They're using this to promote vehicles. So we've got Tesla with video today, Mercedes with video today. Polestar and Volvo have just announced a partnership with Amazon Prime Video coming into the dash. And this is, front seat, center console display. And we actually just launched video with BMW. This is something we introduced last month at IFA and at IBC, and it is available at the dealerships today. Now, in the US, most of the use cases are require the car to be in park right now. But those restrictions will be loosened as the vehicle autonomy increases over time. And the car companies are making a very aggressive play to position themselves in control of this media experience. And it's not stopping there. Gaming is the next trend. We see console games, we see driver games. Here's BMW. The one requirement, though, right now is you need some kind of controller, external input. In the case of BMW, it's your smartphone. This is Mercedes. And Mercedes is really pushing the envelope here. They have actually integrated the cockpit with the games. So the cockpit is now your interface to driving games on the dashboard. So the game will display on the instrument cluster while you're in park. and you use the steering wheel to control the gaming experience. So this is real. This is not a fantasy. This stuff is coming very quickly, and there's significant monetization opportunities behind all of this that are driving the motivation of the automakers. So in this complex environment where the car is getting connected, there's competing media sources, media types, and big technology players, how can radio compete? And I'm thankful to say that a lot of you on the call have already taken the step forward and have integrated your stations with Autostage. And what I'm going to talk about a little bit is DTS Autostage, which is an independent media platform focused on bringing the next generation of radio services to the cockpit of cars around the world. Cumulus, New York Public Radio were pretty early partners of ours integrating their stations with this platform. And I'm going to show you a little bit about where it is in the rollout, what some of the benefits are for the user, and more importantly, what are some of the insights and analytics that you will get as a broadcaster out of this platform, all at no cost. So, what is DTS Autostage? Well, at its core, it's a hybrid radio system. It combines the best of broadcast radio, whether that's analog, HD radio, DAB in Europe, CDR in China, with IP-delivered complementary, primarily metadata. But you'll get a sense of what the range of services are that we deliver. Why should broadcasters even care about that? Why would you want to participate in it? I think it's important that broadcasters take advantage of every technology, every platform that you have available to you to retain and delight your audience. You're doing it on mobile phones with apps. You're doing it in households with smart speakers and connected services like Amazon Alexa. And you absolutely should lean into these opportunities in the dash. It's the way that you will be able to exploit the connectivity while preserving the value and utility of the over-the-air tuner. And there are a couple companies offering solutions. Some of you may have heard of Audi's bespoke system or the Grace Note system. We believe that Autostage is the best for the radio industry. And I can go chapter and verse on why that is. But the bottom line, I think, are 2 points. It's free, and you retain complete editorial control over the user experience. What you want to put alongside your broadcast audio services is in your control. And that is something that we take very seriously and is probably behind why we have over 90,000 radio stations available on our platform. So we launched this platform, and I'll share these slides with you. So, Conrad, I'll send them to you after the session. But feel free to interrupt at any point, raise your hand, or however we want to do it to go into ask any questions. But we launched this service in 2020 with Mercedes. It was a massive deployment. We were in the S class. We sold hundreds of cars around the world. They were $140,000 a piece, but we had to start somewhere. So by the end of 2020, we probably had about 5,000 cars on the road around the world. And it was a pretty amazing user experience. You can see on the left of the screen, when you turn on the radio, you get a rich carousel of all the radio stations that are available in your market. I remember when we first launched this, I brought the car to New York and showed Steve and Conrad down at their facilities. And you could actually just flip through the dial like you would Spotify or Pandora or even a digital video service and really get an immediate sense of what's available on the dial. Since that time, we've launched with Tesla. We did a global launch where they upgraded all of their radios around the world and over 3 million cars in about 60 days. And again, not to point you out, Conrad, but I think a couple of your vehicles were part of that upgrade as well. And then more recently, we launched with Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis. And to share some breaking news with this group, the first group to actually see this publicly, we've launched with Ford Motor Company on their Lincoln vehicles. This will be made more public next week in New York, but now we can add a internal combustion engine domestic manufacturer to our list. And we're not stopping there. Here you can see the evolution of the platform. Started in 2020 with Mercedes. We've expanded over the last 12 months with Hyundai, Kia, Genesis, and Tesla. We've recently added Maybach and Lincoln, and we have an amazing pipeline. We have 3 automakers that will launch within the next 2 months, 3 additional ones. And then we have 7 additional brands that will launch pretty much in the first part of next year. So for those of you who lived through the HD radio launch that took over a decade to really scale, we're now at 100 million cars with HD radio. Autostage, or our hybrid radio solution, is moving at a much, much more rapid pace. We're at about 5 million cars now around the world. That number is only going to grow. So what does it mean to be part of Autostage? How can you, as the leading engineers in your organization, facilitate this integration process? Well, we basically provide a variety of platforms to broadcasters to allow them to send their data, live now playing data, station information, streaming URLs into our Autostage ecosystem. In that ecosystem, we kind of harmonize all the disparate sources. As you can imagine, we have 94,000 stations in our system. We get data in a variety of formats. We harmonize that, and we curate additional information such as song lyrics, album art, artist bios. You'll see all that into our data feed that then gets connected or delivered into the car. The car, when the radio is turned on, immediately tells us where it's located. So we're able to deliver a living list of all the radio station logos and all the now playing information available on all those stations down to the car in about 500 milliseconds. So what's the impact to your end consumer? What you're seeing here is a user interface that Xperi worked with J.D. Power to design that would surface all of our capabilities while keeping the radio user experience simple, intuitive, and available at the touch of a button for the driver. So here you see, this is broadcast radio. Sure doesn't look like broadcast radio from 10 years ago, but here you see the station logo displayed multiple times on the display, the song title, a beautiful picture of the artist, and the ability to hit the like button to tell the radio station this is a great song, and to learn more about the artist, Thomas Rhett, or even see the lyrics. Here is some of the detailed screenshots of those services. We are delivering lyrics, the only company in the world that's licensed to deliver lyrics into the automotive ecosystem. Artist bios, these are all curated from our TiVo Music metadata database. Local events, either directly tied to the artist or events that are associated with the radio station. Those are integrated into this platform. Again, this is radio enhanced with an IP service, and then the discography. You can kind of learn more about Thomas Rhett. So in this world where we're putting video into the dash of the car, we are exploiting the capabilities of this system to display more information that makes radio more engaging and keeps people with the medium longer in their vehicle. I've often said this publicly, this is the only global hybrid radio solution, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. What you see here, these green polygons represent the concentration of our vehicles around the world. These represent where cars are that are equipped with Autostage and are listening to broadcast radio. That's how we know this, because they are connecting to our system, telling us where they are, telling us what radio station they're listening to. Here in the US, our biggest market by far, we have about 3.1 million cars on the road, and we support right now about 21,000 radio stations and broadcasts. So all your translators and repeaters are included in this system as well. I mentioned the editorial control piece and the analytics and insight, and that is really critical. If a radio group decides that they want to integrate with our system, they sign a very simple 2.5-page data use agreement, and then they provide us an interface, usually out of the playout system, or if you're using Q Interactive, that will work as well, where you're basically taking ownership of every one of your radio stations within our system and delivering us some information so we understand what your station is broadcasting. We, in turn, give you access to something called the DTS Broadcaster Portal. This is where you can not only see and control all of the metadata around your radio stations, but it's where you begin to get the insights and analytics as to how your audience is engaging with your programming. What we're seeing here is a screen grab from iHeart's registration page. This is, the first, 5 stations of hundreds that are in our system. On the left side of the screen, you see the static information that we have about the radio station. Some of this is used for internal management. Some of it is actually distributed via our API to the dashboard of the car. In the middle, you see a preview of station reach, which I'll get into in more detail. And then on the right side is an area where you can spot check the live data that you're sending us. So for example, this soft rock station right now, when I took the screen grab, was not sending us any live data. They may have been in a commercial break. It may have been the top of the hour. We're not really sure. But here you can see where a song is playing, that information is displayed. You can then select any one of the stations. I actually gave this presentation in Nashville, so you'll see a lot of the data is for the Nashville market. But this is the page where, again, you get more detail about the radio station, where you can validate or modify your station logo. These are high-resolution logos for these large in-vehicle displays. You see all the information here. If I could scroll down, you would also see the streaming URLs for the radio station, because we support a feature called service following, where when you drive out of coverage of the broadcast signal, we enable you to continue listening to the radio station. Now I'm going to get into the analytics. So there's 4 types of analytics that we have made available in this first release of the portal. And last year at the NAB in New York, Pierre Bouvard and I did a session on this, but it was all theoretical. None of this data was live. So what we had talked about literally just 12 months ago was not built. And since that time, we've put this platform together. We've launched it in March of last year, and now literally thousands of radio stations are using this for a number of reasons that we'll get to in more detail. But the 4 types of data that we support right now are station reach, day part activity, heat map, and the top charts. And I'll go into each one of those in a little detail. So the first thing you're seeing is station reach, which we've been told should probably be categorized more as share, described more as share than reach. So we're iterating and refining this, but basically what you're looking at is, of all the DTS equipped cars in the Nashville market, we looked at all their radio listening, and Big 98 accounted for over 15% of all the radio listening in the market over the last 30-day period that's displayed here. And you can see how their share changed day by day. Some weeks it was very consistent. Some weeks it was, down around 10%, but very strong. And you get to see the total sessions and the average time that each driver was listening to that radio station. This data is captured every day. It takes us about 30 hours to crunch the data. because we're doing this again for 5 million cars right now around the world, for literally, hundreds of thousands of discrete interactions. We also provide a view, and Steve has a great story he's going to tell in New York about Memorial Day. Memorial Day, about how his stations were behaving. But in this slide, we take all the data that represents how your audience flowed throughout the day. When did they tune in? When did they tune out? You can pick any day of the week. And what you see in this graphic is an orange bar, an orange graph that represents the day you've selected. The gray line behind it is the average of every Monday, in this case, in our system. So you can see how the station's performing, if you're doing anything unique with your programming, what kind of effect it has, and if there's any breaking news, if there's any, holiday driving going on, you'll see all that. Okay, the next is the heat map. And this one I like for a number of reasons. I believe this has commercial benefit in your advertising support business, but also for the engineers in the organization. We tell you exactly where your audience is listening, and probably most importantly, how they're listening. So Big 98 here is obviously a big powerhouse station in Nashville. You can see the general vicinity of their listeners by this heat map. We use the same technology weather maps deployed to show concentration of the audience. And you'll notice that I call that the analog listening. We actually measure analog and HD listening separately, so you can get a better understanding of not only where your signal is reaching and where your audience is, but how your infrastructure is being utilized by your audience. If this was a New York radio station, you would see the exact opposite. You'd see 60-70% of the audience listening to the HD signal and 20-30% listening to analog. And by and large, in most major markets, the reason for that is because of the power difference and the coverage difference between analog and digital. And here we see the HD radio listening for Big 98. You may have noticed that Bowling Green, there's no listening up there because the HD signal doesn't reach there. So still a very high concentration though in the city. And again, we're going to have multiple examples of this at NAB. The final thing I want to point out is what we call top charts. What we noticed while we were looking at the data we were collecting is that we can tell you things about how your programming is performing. If you identify a piece of programming, in this case as a song or maybe a commercial, we're going to be able to monitor, track, and aggregate all the sessions for any discrete piece of content. So it's pretty obvious to appreciate that a song is a unique piece of content. We're able to count how many times that song was listened to, not how many times it was played, how many times it was listened to, and we're creating this list. We could do the same thing for advertisements, and we can actually give you the exact number of times that ad was listened to in the market for a week, a month, a day, whatever period you're interested in. And right now, while we're only in those 5 vehicle brands, so it's a very small subset of your audience, remember we're going to be in 17 different vehicle brands by basically this time next year. So in Nashville, we always get the question, what's my sample size? How does this compare to Nielsen? Is this statistically representative of my market? Well, from a demographic perspective, it isn't. It's a discrete set of vehicles. Now they range from $150,000 down to $30,000, model years from 2016 all the way through to 2023. The Hyundai vehicles are software upgradable. So if David Lair did a little news story on how he upgraded his Hyundai. He was able to upgrade it months after he bought the car. And that's happening literally around the country right now, with Hyundai owners around the world. So the number of cars is increasing quite dramatically. And we're going to include in the analytics dashboard numbers, more specifics around the sample size that make up some of those heat maps that make up the share numbers. So you're going to get much more specific visibility into the audience. There's some great examples of broadcasters using this technology, using this capability to drive their business. Most of it is private, but Lee was generous enough to do an interview with Radio World recently in their ebook on actionable insights, and tell the story about how he used the data we were delivering to him to basically sign up new advertisers. He's generated a meaningful amount of business in a very, very small market because of this technology. So I encourage you all to download this Radio World ebook. If you haven't downloaded their books in a while, we have done 3 ebooks with them just around Autostage. So if you want to know more about how it works and the features, that's an excellent resource. And this is a heck of an interesting story. And so, with that, in this unbelievably competitive and fast-moving in-car environment, I think radio can absolutely compete and win. And you have a dedicated technology partner who is working to bring your content into the car with Xperi. It's free. It's open to everyone. Ask Conrad. It's not very challenging to do the integration. Ask Steve. You can do a lot with it once you're in there. And but I think you asked earlier, Juan is the guy. Juan works on my team. So here is his contact information. This is the website where you can register and get started. And we're literally only at the beginning of this. The next 12 months are going to be very exciting. I did see the question about the device in the home. Right now, Autostage is only for the car. The home is a very challenging space for broadcast radio, as I think you all know. There are so many alternatives now to get audio content into the home, whether it's a smartphone and a Bluetooth speaker or Alexa or a smart TV. But I will tell you one of the things that we are doing, because Xperi also owns TiVo, and we've deployed an independent operating system actually into the smart TV space. It's called TiVo OS. We've signed up Sharp and Vestel, and we are including radio apps and Autostage content into the smart TVs. However, it does not have an over-the-air tuner. How is emergency alerting provided in different countries? That's a good question. We do not interfere or modify any over-the-air emergency alert service. So whatever is currently deployed in the broadcast chain will persist unencumbered. We don't change that at all. What we are looking at is, let's use CAPs in the case of the US. If there is a multimedia CAP message that's delivered to the broadcaster, they can deliver it to us, and we will be able to feed that through our IP channel into the car. It's not a use case that we've spent a lot of time with, but it's certainly a capability that we can enable. The link to the ebook,
is it the Worldwide Radio Platform for Automotive ebook?
That is the one on Autostage.
Yeah.
But then there's another one for Insights. I thought Radio World had they
have a page with all of them. It would just need to know which one it is, and I can find the link.
Yeah, let me go on my other book here. Yeah, so the one I just had up is called Actionable Business Intelligence for Radio, a new ebook. And then
Yeah, I'm not seeing that one
I'm
in
not
here.
seeing it either.
Oh, here it is. I found it.
Uh,
I'll plug it in the chat.
okay. Yeah, they have so many of them.
Yeah,
I'm
here it comes.
yeah, so the call to action, so there's radio's call to action. DTS Autostage was the first ebook we did for them. But there was another one we did that was a bit more international. Oh yeah, the worldwide, that's it. A worldwide radio platform for automotive. That is the more recent version of our ebook. It does focus a lot on DAB, but it has updates. I think there's an article written by Pierre in there, and it has updates on some of the new services and features. So
yeah, I'm gonna put the link to the homepage for their ebooks here as well, so you can sort of scan through that page and see all the different ones that are available. But the first one that I did is the one that you were referencing about the business intelligence one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you went the Mercedes of clock radio. Yeah, I don't blame you. I think, you know, it's really been frustrating. You know, I'm one of the guys that started Ubiquity, for better or worse. Don't hold that against me. And you know, we've watched the demise of broadcast radio technology and aftermarket consumer electronics. We're hoping there's a bit of a resurgence with some of the smart TV activities, but I mean, it's a challenge to find a clock radio, let alone at, you know, online, let alone at retail. So that's all I had, Conrad. I'm happy to take any more
Very
questions.
good. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions?
I have a quick question, Conrad.
Sure.
Joe, great information. You really handled that well, and I got a better understanding. I've got kind of a question from off on a tangent here. Is there a lot of federal pushback on safety with, as I see these screens getting elaborate? When you pointed out the gaming, I assume the car will be stopped, but does it go beyond that as this gets more and more, like when you mentioned lyrics on the screen also? I was surprised to see that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a balance. And I think, you know, the automotive industry is trying to push the envelope while still maintaining a self-regulated posture. So they do a lot of testing on driver distractions and when the driver workload drops so that they can do some of these interactive things. So right now, most of these advanced features, like lyrics, are disabled when the vehicle's moving. Lyrics are actually deployed in Mercedes. You can't get them when you're moving, okay? So they are being a little bit conservative, but there's two things going on that are kind of tied to the ADAS system. The first is the ADAS environment in general, right? The external vehicle control, the lane departure warning, adaptive cruise control, everything that you're seeing in Tesla and Mercedes and General Motors vehicles that are moving towards autonomy. And as those autonomous features are proven out and allowed basically by the government and more importantly by the insurance companies, you're going to see the driver workload balance shift where they're going to be able to do things differently. The other thing that we're doing, we have another technology called Autosense. Autosense is an in-cabin driver and passenger monitoring system. So these are systems, camera-based, that basically, for the driver, it's very sophisticated. It looks at like pupil dilation, you know, pupil direction, glance, moods, all kinds of things for the driver. But for the passengers, I mean, the biggest use case that's just recently been mandated in Europe is a passenger monitoring system to make sure you don't leave your kid or your dog in the car. It's required by law now in Europe. So now that those technologies are in the vehicle, the car companies are starting to look at how they can use those to harmonize the driver workload, the passenger engagement with the media experience in the dash. So literally, you will see a time when the lyrics are on the screen. If the driver's eyes go to the screen, the lyrics will go blank. So it's incredibly sophisticated. And, I know there was an article that came out recently that said the connected car is a crash waiting to happen. I would challenge that. The connected car is an environment where you are finding innovation around media consumption like nowhere else in the home or even on the phone. And that optimization of the driver workload and the exposure to media is something that they're very, very aware of. And they're leveraging all kinds of technology to maximize the availability of media to passengers and then the drivers. So it's a long-winded answer, but it's very interesting to watch. It's actually fascinating to watch.
Yeah, so you did a great job of keeping it, so even I could understand that. That's an awesome explanation.
One thing I do want to tease, though, like gaming, you think of gaming as these console games, right, where you're playing Space Invaders on your phone. The first generation games we're seeing are driver games that are designed to be safe to play while you're driving. Well,
hard to believe.
The obvious one is like quiz games, right? Name that tune, Jeopardy, local trivia, sports trivia. We're actually starting to work with broadcasters, because we do have a gaming solution as well, to produce and curate those local games. I mean, this is where I get very excited about being the broadcast representative within Xperi. There are opportunities that broadcasters are going to have to be first to market in this space, where you're doing a local sports game. I mean, and it can all be controlled by, voice even. I think there's huge opportunity for you guys to expand your connection with the audience.
Very, very cool. Thank you.
Yep. Hi, Joe. If a station logo shows up on the dash in the station, not using details. Okay. I got a question here. If you're not integrated with us, where do we get your logo? Right. And the answer is, it kind of depends. If it's an HD radio station that's broadcasting a logo and you're not integrated with us, the over-the-air logo will be displayed. We also, though, curate. We have an editorial team of about 300 people that go around and research and try to find publicly available logos for radio stations and then match those to the over-the-air signal. So we do a lot of hand curation, and sometimes we get it wrong. So we get calls from broadcasters often, and emails. Hey, my logo's wrong in your system. We invite you to integrate. If you don't want to integrate, give us the right logo anyway, and we'll update that.
Joe, the guys at Broadcast Electronics just announced an update to the radio experience, the TRE. Are you guys going to take an interface from them to feed Autostage?
We can. Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yes. If a broadcaster is using it and that's how they want to feed us data, we are platform agnostic. So it's really at your discretion. It's your data. We'll work with you as best we can to integrate. And that means we've done some custom integrations for broadcasters, but we do integrate with all the playout systems, except wide orbit right now. We're working on that. And some of those metadata management platforms like Q and RCS. I know that there are some legacy integrations with TRE. I hesitated because I haven't seen the update, whatever it is, and we haven't worked with them.
Yeah, they just announced it, and we're actually running a test on it, but I don't know that it's ready for production yet. But the reason I asked the question is because for us, we had to come up with a solution to feed Autostage that basically aggregated all of our station information and sent it over to you. But for a smaller broadcaster, they may not have the resource to be able to do that. So, the TRE solution potentially could be something that they might afford and be able to connect. That would get you more subscribers into the system, I would think. So,
yeah, and again, we are working with almost every automation system right now, and we did work with TRE in the past, and we know Perry and the guys over at LNOs very, very well. So I don't see any reason why we would not work with them. How can I? AM
I
station.
just have a statement and question, if I may.
Sure.
Go Bud.
So, a couple of things. First off, I'm coming off of a week and a half of living Rapid and Q and Autostage, and driving out to these markets and driving away and seeing logos and seeing the data that was plugged in online on the broadcast portal or through Q, which we're using, was phenomenal and is phenomenal. And I'm excited because this is the future, as Joe says. However, I think what I'm seeing, and maybe you can shed some light on this, when you provide an API to the auto manufacturers, is there, do you provide, like you're providing, I guess, every feature that you can provide to them? It is then up to the manufacturer to integrate that API. How do you govern what features they're going to include or not include? Because in my opinion, it can make or break the experience. One of the things I think is very strong is, falling back to the stream. To me, that is huge. And I'm in a Kia, and I got the Kia because of David's comments almost a year ago about his experience in his Hyundai. And, I thought on this vehicle, it would go back to the stream, and it did, or it hasn't yet. And I'll do the update when it comes out. But is there any sort of, are there any minimums that you're asking the manufacturers to adhere to?
Sure. Yeah. So that's a great question. And the short answer is yes. We have an interface requirements document that at a minimum, they have to take what we call the static information. So that's station logo, the station format, the call sign, basically those things that are not dynamic data. That's the Tesla implementation, as Conrad can attest to. Then we talk about the dynamic data. And there's two types of dynamic data that we categorize. It's display data, which is the album, the song lyrics, anything that's visually represented on the dash. And then there's the stream URL for the service following. How the car company integrates service following can vary. So in the case of Mercedes, if you want to enable, you get Autostage out of the box. Everything works from the static and dynamic perspective, and they use the embedded modem in the car that is free to the user. There's no data charge. It comes with the vehicle. Mercedes uses it for vehicle updates, diagnostics, things like that. You get all of that static and dynamic display data for free. If you want, though, to enable service following, you have to either do one of two things: either buy a premium data package for the embedded modem, pay a subscription for that, and that'll unlock TuneIn and a whole bunch of other streaming embedded services, or you have to pair your phone. And then when the service following would be delivered over the IP connection that your phone has established. The Kia, your question about Kia, I would ask you to check one thing and see, do you have the DTS logo on
Yes.
your? Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
So I need to check. If you have that logo, my understanding is the service is fully active, but there may be a second step required either in the vehicle to activate the stream, or I'll also ask, do you know if you've provided us your stream?
Yes.
You have. Okay. So do you have access to the portal that we just showed?
Yes, for my
Okay.
stations, yes, that's the easiest one to go with. I know I've got my streams listed up there.
Well, then I need to get back to you and understand
Okay, thank
what's
you.
going on and why you're not getting the switch over.
But I told you at the
Okay.
beginning, this isn't a support call.
No, this is important because if somebody gets on this is a feature that's being presented, which when I go to my managers, this is huge, right,
Yeah.
Conrad? And I'm sure
Yeah,
if you've mentioned this
completely
throughout the
agree.
company,
Yep, absolutely.
and then they get into a car and it's like, where's that feature? Oh, it's not in this one. Then then the bubble is burst. That's all. I'm just trying to understand what minimums there are. I'm not, and I didn't bring up the issue that I mentioned at the beginning of the
Sure.
meeting. So
Right. So there's a little bit more to the story. We also have a certification process. So whatever they license, whatever feature set they're going to implement, all of it gets certified. So we don't let receivers go into the market without testing them. The other thing about the Kia that I need to confirm is at what point do they switch? Like if there is still a receivable analog frequency, it may not trigger the switch. They might not have what would you call that? A low level of sensitivity in their
right.
algorithm. Mercedes switches, in my opinion, Mercedes switches a little too early, but that means they come back a little too late as well. So we're trying to optimize that. But I'll get back to you, Bud, on that for sure. There's a question about SXM. No, this is terrestrial broadcast radio only, and all the global standards that are currently supported. Is this over the air AM? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I just answered the same way. So
okay.
anyway,
and DAB in Europe and CDR, converged digital radio in China.
So we're at time. We're 4 minutes over. I know Jeff usually likes to try and keep us right on time. Joe, thank you very much for the presentation and for the preview of some of the things that we're going to be seeing next week at NAB. That's awesome, and the fact that you're on the road to getting more manufacturers in, it's really going to be helpful. From my point of view, I think being able to prove that somebody listened to a song or an ad is, it's groundbreaking for over-the-air radio. So that's going to be cool as that builds. Joe, thanks again. We really appreciate the time.
Thank you for the opportunity, and feel free to reach out to either me or Juan. And Bud, I will track down an answer for you.
Thanks for joining us. Please remember to subscribe to SBE 15 New York City.